Hello, in this video I have a game to show you in my Shokaku, and we'll start by ramming my allied ship. Basically I put myself on autopilot, went away to take my fighters, get them off the aircraft and heading south, and realised the North Carolina beside me wasn't moving. I spotted it, well, just before I rammed it, so I was only going slow. We only did a little bit of damage to each other, but still that was kind of a bad start to the game. Yeah, and things are actually about to get a little bit worse here. I'm reversing away from the North Carolina to go around it because that player probably still isn't loaded into the game. And we spot enemy dive bombers. We're up against an enemy Lexington. And I can never quite remember what the aircraft loadout options for the Lexington are. But I'm pretty sure if I see two dive bombers, that means they might be fighter heavy. And if you look on the minimap now, I'm pulling my fighters back because I can see two enemy fighter squadrons chasing after me, which means they have 12 fighters in the air to my 8. Which means I'm going to be playing defensively in this match. It's not much point sending my fighters out to engage, enemy aircraft aggressively because they will just get swarmed by the enemy fighters and die. That North Carolina started moving, so I'm able to go around it easily enough now. But yeah, things aren't looking good for me so far in this match. Just had a bad feeling about it. I've got my bombers hanging back above an allied battleship, just looking for an opportunity to go in. We see enemy dive bombers coming up, so I move my fighters above the Hatsuharu. That looks like it's going to be their target. It seems not. It seems like the dive bombers are just circling above an enemy cruiser. And that's where we spot an enemy battleship in North Carolina. I figure it's worth having a go at that. There is a cruiser right next to it though, but I'm willing to risk that. The dive bombers start coming at the Hatsuharu, so I send my fighters to intercept them, which is kind of bad. Basically my torpedo bombers are about to fly right past where I'm engaging these dive bombers. And basically my fighters are going to draw the enemy fighters in. Enemy fighters are probably on the way already. And if they weren't, they will be now that they've seen my torpedo bombers flying past. So I decide this is actually kind of foolish and pull my torpedo bombers back. So my first attempted strike of the match was aborted, and yes, here come the enemy fighters, all 12 of them. And of course I've only got 7 fighters in the air. I lost one in that initial engagement. But I have shot down 5 of the enemy torpedo bombers, and my allies' AA guns took out the rest of them there, so we're actually doing pretty alright. Basically I've decided that since the enemy fighters are over there, I'm going to send my bombers right to the other side of the map, and hopefully we can find something to hit over here. It looks like the enemy team's basically all gone west, and my team, well, they've encountered one enemy ship in the east and they sunk it. So not really sure what good I'll be able to do in the east, but maybe I'll be able to find something to do. And we've spotted all the enemy battleships, and they're all heading to the west. Well, one of them's still hanging back in the centre, but the other 3 have all gone to the west. Along with... I haven't really been counting the cruisers. Oh! Well, it turns out that their easternmost ship is the Lexington, the enemy aircraft carrier. Now, I don't really usually go in for opening strikes against the enemy aircraft carrier. I just feel it's got a high chance of failure and you're pretty much guaranteed to take heavy losses, so I tend to avoid it. But if the aircraft carrier is on the outside of its team, as this one is, well then I may as well go for it. So I've got my torpedo bombers coming in for a direct attack. I've got my dive bombers heading down south of it in preparation for a second attack. And my fighters are flying into the north just to intercept the enemy fighters if they try and get involved here, which I'm sure they will. So my torpedoes are in the water. First strike looks pretty good. Only 2 hits, but it's turning away from my second wave of torpedoes. The fighters show up, so I send my fighters to keep them busy for a little while. So from those 2 strikes I actually managed to get 7 torpedoes on target. No, 6 torpedoes on target. And here comes my first dive bomber squadron. I'm sending them in separately because I didn't start any flooding with those torpedoes. And it turns out one dive bomber squadron was enough to finish it off with a 4,000 damage dive bomb attack. So I send my second dive bomber squadron to attack this Fuso, which was hanging around nearby. Do a little bit of damage and start a fire. But you can kind of see my casualties here. I've lost all my fighters. I've also lost 3 torpedo bombers and currently 6 dive bombers. So as I said, attacking enemy aircraft carriers, they are kind of risky. You take heavy losses doing so. And if that aircraft carrier had been back behind its team, so I had to fly over enemy ships to get to it, it would have been even more costly for my aircraft loadout. But well, it was worth it. I've managed to win air superiority. But something very odd's about to happen. You see my team is pulling back from the west, and because I was busy attacking that Lexington, I was a bit slow to react. So I'm actually now I'm now on the outside of my team. There's no one to really defend me. But I don't have to worry about aircraft attack, and so long as I don't, no one comes within range of my secondaries, they won't actually see me. So I'm pretty safe here. And that's when I see some enemy fighters coming straight at me. I'm not entirely sure what's happened here. Here are the enemy fighters, as they're coming straight at me. Basically, my understanding was that when the aircraft carrier got sunk, the enemy aircraft completed their mission, then circled above wherever it sunk. So I'm guessing their mission must have been to shoot down my fighters, and they're still trying to do it, even though the fighters they're trying to shoot down were on the deck of my aircraft carrier. So I've got my anti-aircraft guns trying to drive them away. Well, not drive them away, shoot them down, and they're doing alright so far, but while that's happening, the entire enemy team is basically shooting at me. I'm also running away as fast as I can. I've got my fighters scrambling. You can see my second squadron's going into the action. But we're about to shoot down... There we go, we've shot down one of the enemy squadrons. There are still 4 fighters left. And now I've got 8 fighters in the air, so we'll get rid of them pretty quickly. And I'm leaving at full speed, but I'm still under enemy fire, and I've lost about half my hit points. So yeah, that was a bit odd. But while this has happened, I actually sent my torpedo bombers to attack this North Carolina. I was kind of thinking I might die, so I just figured I'd scramble my bombers, get them to do something, just in case I am dead. And turns out that was good. I get 4 torpedo hits, and that's enough to sink the North Carolina. So far I've managed to sink 2 tier 8 ships in the opening minutes of this match. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. Sent my dive bombers to attack the Mahan that was kind of endangering me a bit there, but it gets sunk before they arrive. So I decide now to focus on the enemy battleships, which are bringing up the rear here. And I say that, and this Nagato appears to be reversing, so they're not really bringing up the rear. It's actually probably reversing to try and engage my allied cruisers as they've gone right round and are now on the south of the islands. I don't bother staggering my attacks here because I thought there'd be a lot of anti-aircraft fire from the 3 enemy battleships in this region. But it turns out it was a bit of a mistake, because by not staggering the attacks it means that it'll just put out the fires I started very quickly. But I only lost 1 aircraft, so if I had have sent them in staggered, Squadron 6 goes in and then 30 seconds later Squadron 7 goes in, I probably would have lost 2 aircraft, but at least one of the fires I started would have done a lot of damage. So a bit of a mistake on my part there, but it's okay. It's pretty clear my team's going to win this one. We've got 8 ships remaining to the enemy's 4. I'm just going to focus on sinking this Nagato for now. I know I haven't done a lot of damage to it, but I have forced it to use its repair ability due to my setting fires. So hopefully these torpedo bombers will come in and hopefully start some flooding that will do a lot of damage there. My main concern is the enemy cruiser up in the north. Basically these battleships I can run away from, no problems. They should never be able to fire a shot at me. Whereas I'm going to be launching torpedo and dive bomber attacks at them for the rest of the game. But that cruiser could conceivably chase me down. But at the moment it's engaging an allied battleship and a destroyer, so I've got a decent chance to run away, and I'm heading down south as fast as I can. My torpedo bombers have arrived, and they've got a fighter up in the air which scrambles Squadron 5's attack, which is unfortunate because Squadron 5 is coming right in the broadside. We do manage to shoot down the enemy fighter, but a bit too late. So we have to settle for 2 hits, and we do start some flooding. So hopefully that flooding will go for a little while. It's actually been a while since my dive bombers were here, but still. Actually, maybe not. Maybe it did get to repair it. Okay, so this time I'm going to stagger my attacks a bit better. Got Squadron 6 will be the first one here. And I know I just caused flooding, so actually, assuming it's put out that flooding, it doesn't really matter if I stagger my attacks, they're all going to do a lot of damage. So here comes Squadron 6, I lost 1 aircraft, kind of what I'd expect, or as I said just a moment ago, it's about what I expected, started 2 fires. Here comes Squadron 7, it's not really proper staggering, but as I said, it's not important in this situation to do it. And aim for the rear of the ship since I started fires on the front, and 1 more fire. So, 3 fires on the Nagato, that's going to do a lot of damage, needless to say. And it's going to burn for a fair while since, it appears to have put out the fires. Okay. Not sure what's happening here either, because I caused flooding. I'm pretty sure it wasn't taking flooding damage, so it must have used repair ability to put the flooding out. But now it's not taking fire damage. Even though it should be taking a lot of fire damage. It's, yeah, it must have some, probably all the captain perks, maybe even the premium repair ability, because it's going through its repair cycle very quickly, that Nagato. Which is a bit frustrating, but well, I've done so much damage at this point that I'm just going to keep sticking with trying to sink this guy, even though it's obviously not working out for me. Well, no, it is working out for me. I've done a lot of damage to it. It's just frustrating because I kind of rely, especially with dive bombers, you rely on your fire damage to actually make them worthwhile. And if people can keep putting out their fire damage really quickly, that's kind of painful, or at least frustrating. But anyway, torpedo bombers are halfway there. See enemy Nagatos engaging my friendly Nagato just on the top of the screen there. Well, that's a better view of it. We've got the advantage here. Enemy Nagato's taken a lot of damage over the last couple of minutes as I've been attacking it. I should also mention that cruiser the Nagato was fighting earlier is dead, so I'm now about as confident as I can be that we're going to win this one. The only thing that could stop us is if I run out of aircraft and my team completely sucks. And the enemy team splits up so they can camp in 3 bases. But I've sunk that Nagato. 2 torpedoes was all it took. And just divert my dive bombers that were coming in to follow up towards this Colorado. Oh, and actually that Nagato almost sunk my allied Nagato, so it's probably a good thing that I did it then. Or really maybe not, because we are currently 8 points away from winning. So maybe if that Nagato had have sunk, I would have got a decent chance to do a bit more damage to this Colorado. But we don't, we win the game. And I'll just have to settle for 3,289 experience. Sunk 3 enemy ships, 14 torpedo hits, 14 bomb hits, 16 aircraft shot down. 3rd best on my team, 1,600 experience base. And add all these up, well that's 75 plus 25, plus let's just round those both to 15. And that's 130,000 damage-ish. And it was only a 13-minute game. Or, well, 16 minutes 21, but that includes the time I spent ramming my allied North Carolina, so whatever. Oh no, 16:21 is the time I played it. No, it was 13 minutes. 13 minutes 52 seconds. I thought it was 13 minutes. So yeah, that was very high damage output. It's just a shame, as I said, that Nagato, I didn't do as much fire damage to it that I really think I should have. But as you see there, I still did 14,000 fire damage, 24,000 flooding damage, and actually a lot of that must have been against the Nagato, because I didn't do that much against any other ships now that I think about it. It's the North Carolina, I sunk in 1 blow. Lexington, I sunk in 1 strike. The Fuso, I started a fire, and I suppose I might have done a bit of fire damage to it. So actually the bulk of that must be against the Nagato. So that's what I'm talking about. I've done pretty well. And yeah, that is the Shokaku. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.